Okay, so this is for June 9th. I entirely just didn't do it. Well, I did. I did the article I had in the notes. I'm just recording this on June 10th. So, I guess yesterday, what the article I read was Reflections on Puzzle Design in Puzzledorf, which is a Sokoban style puzzle game. Um, I haven't played it. It looks really fun, so check it out. It's like $10 on Steam. Anyway, so the first thing that we talk about at the start of this article is something called the onboarding process. This onboarding process isn't necessarily for the designer, rather it's for teaching the player the basic mechanics and techniques that are going to be used throughout the game. So to start on a more simple level, teaching the player how to play, especially in a puzzle game, is super important. And one way that the author recommends doing this is to build a puzzle that denies any affordances that would cause the player to lose or result in a negative end condition. Um, so I drew a little thing right here. This is where the player starts. They need to get one box to this X and this other box to this other X. And this is specifically in Puzzledorf. You need to get specifically colored boxes to specifically colored box tiles, I guess. So this would be the box tile for this box, and this would be the box tile for this box. We are enclosing the player because we literally don't want to allow them any other options except for the option that we want. This way, we're literally causing the player to interact with our game in the way we want them to get them to start with our mechanics. We can definitely open up levels later. Games don't have to be like this forever, and they shouldn't. But what's most important here is getting the player to understand the game without a pop-up window of text or anything like that. So yeah, I think with this method, something that could happen is a player may just move and then not realize why they won, which is a very real thing that could happen, because when you think about it, a lot of people just press buttons, and if they win, they win, you know? But yeah. So then earlier I mentioned something called Sokoban, which is actually a classic Japanese puzzle game about pushing boxes, and it's apparently like a cult classic. You can find it free online if you want to actually play it. I played a couple levels of it. It's about what you expect. The Sokoban subgenre that it spawned is actually just puzzles about usually pushing blocks. Yeah, so that's what Sokoban is. So then after we talk about the onboarding process, we talk about purposeful design. So purposeful design corresponds with some concepts we talked about yesterday, like elegance and minimalism. And when discussing those, we had said that elegance is about simplicity and efficiency, and purposeful design is similar to that. Three principles of it are: everything has a purpose, there's no dead space, and the player's trust is earned. So everything within the level needs to have a purpose, there's no dead space, and by doing these first two, you earn the player's trust that there's an actual solution to be had. Obviously, you all know, whenever you play a puzzle game, that you can get a solution, but it's more about the player trusting themselves and the game designer that yeah, I can do this. So when we talk about dead space, what does that actually mean? So dead space is any space that prevents the player from being able to craft solutions off the start, or rather any space that confuses the player or aims to confuse the player. Think about right here, right? This is one tile long. If you know any, if you play any tile games, this is one tile across, and then one tile vertically, and then multiple tiles across. We could put another space up here, so this could be 2 by however many spaces this is. But why? Why would we want to do that? We could put another space right here just to get the player to move around, but why? Right? Any space that is not contributing to the solution of itself, or of the solution of the puzzle, is dead space and should be removed. So that's what dead space is. There are some caveats to purposeful design. So the only caveat is, I guess, when a player breaks your design or breaks your purposeful design. What does breaks mean? Breaks means they find a new solution or unintended solution within your game. Okay, so someone broke your design. What do you do next? There's two things you need to deduce. A, is this just a new solution that I haven't thought of? And is this a rare occurrence for each player? Or is this consistent? Is this consistently happening? If it's the latter, it's said that you should consider or account for that new solution because so many people are finding it. So if there are any rough edges or any dead spaces that contribute to that solution, you should readjust your level design to better incorporate it into the puzzle as a whole. Or if it's just a rare occurrence, you can still leave it in, but it's recommended to maybe not, just because while we want to allow player creativity, if only a couple people are reaching a certain solution, but that solution and the space you need for it is causing confusion within your average player, you don't want to risk the niche for the more average. More often than not, if you're trying to appeal to a broader audience, which this has a lot of ideas about that, appealing to a broader audience, you're gonna want to keep it as easy as possible for the average player. But yeah, so then complexity is the next thing he talks about. So when talking about complexity, there's one thing we have to say at the start. If the player can't take in the puzzle as a whole at a glance and begin to make a solution in their head, it's too complex, right? So with something like that, how do you make a complex puzzle? So a complex puzzle doesn't need to have a lot of moving parts. It doesn't need to have a lot of space. It doesn't need to have a lot of anything. All a complex puzzle needs is complex application of multiple different puzzle solving techniques, right? So when we're talking about complexity, we're not talking about adding more pieces. We're talking about thinking about using techniques in new ways or in sequential ways that a player would not usually think of. So that's what complexity means in a good puzzle game. And then he talks about it looks easy but surprises you. This is sort of like a general thing, I suppose. But the easier a puzzle looks to solve, the more someone's gonna want to try to test it, right? Because if you see, let's say you see the last turn or last twist on a Rubik's Cube, but someone puts it down, you're gonna want to just, right? Because that's satisfying. That's a satisfying thing to do. If you have a solution made in your brain and you think it's gonna be easy to execute, you're gonna chase that satisfaction, and when you don't get it, you'll try to resolve the frustration of not getting it, right? So it's sort of like an ad in a way, where you're trying to get people to click because it looks so easy to solve. Just a general tip for that is the visual layout should provide a clear goal to the player off the start. They should never be confused about what they're supposed to be doing, because if you provide a clear goal, if you show where your pieces are and where they need to go, then a player already knows where to start. That is a piece of the larger puzzle. But yeah, that was more on puzzle design.